Hey everybody, it is Tammy Van Hollander, and I'm very excited to have another very special guest, Dr. Yolanda Fountain. Yolanda and I work together. We're both on the board of the World Association for Sand Therapy Professionals and have gotten to know each other. And when I thought of yet another person to reach out to of words of wisdom, Yolanda, I thought of you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this.
Yeah, so we chatted a little bit, and I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit in terms of, I think that you have some real words of wisdom that you can be talking to our community about today. And what we talked about, it may get a little tearful, and your bravery of being vulnerable, but how it could help so many of us.
Yes, thank you. So I decided to elaborate a little bit more on an invitation that John Burr extended to me regarding a video posted by the Utah Association for Play Therapy. And it was coming from play therapists to help them navigate the waters of this storm called the pandemic. And so I shared my video, which explained the acronym that I created for the word play, P.L.A.Y. And so I would like to just share with you some of my personal grief experiences, since I realized that this pandemic will be a huge combination of grief and trauma, and how over time I have integrated play into processing my grief, with the hopes that you may be able to possibly take away some ideas or even understand some of the abstract concepts that can help you process during such a challenging time. So, all right, well, let's start with P. So, and first I'll spell out all of them. P is play, L is laugh, A is attitude of gratitude, and Y is you. And I also tailor it to my name, which is Yolanda. And so if we start with P, think about play. I'll share with you a loss I recently had this past week, and I'm still dealing with it. So I recently got an ear infection, and I haven't had an ear infection since I used to get them all the time when I was little, but I haven't had them in forever. And so in some ways, this was like a new adult experience for me to get an earache. And so I realized it was coming on. I was like, oh no, it was the worst. It was like a rock sitting on the right side of my face. Couldn't hear sometimes. And so I was able to get a homeopathic, my doctor's office, they leave like your homeopathic remedies outside the door. And so I was able to pick that up. Plus I had some ear oil. So I started doing all that to make it feel better. Well, I realized, I was trying to think, how in the world did I develop an ear infection? I'm highly allergic to all tree pollens. So I wasn't really going outside other than once a week or once every other week for groceries. But also I realized I'm not doing as much movement as I used to, being in the playroom with the kids, jumping up and down. And so one of the ways that I incorporated the P for play is I actually recognize if I like move my head like this, or I shake it a lot, that it was helping my vestibular system to balance out the ear drainage in my ear. So one day I just put on music and started dancing and shaking my head. And so it was very helpful in just being playful with it to help reduce the pain sensation that I was feeling in my ear. So that is a kind of a light loss that I realized. Now to share a more heavy one, on December of 25th, 2018, so on Christmas Day, a lady ran the red light and hit the car that my husband and my grandmother were in. It was my husband's car. And we were picking up my grandmother to take her to my mother's house for Christmas so that we can visit my family before we went drove out of state to visit his. Well, we didn't make it. We ended up being all day at the accident scene in the ER. Come to find out, I was pregnant at the time, And the baby lived for like another month and then died without my awareness. And so it ended up being what's called a mis-miscarriage, where literally it was dead in my body for about a month. Now, do note I was still practicing and doing all this stuff at this time and practicing as a clinician. And so essentially the lady ran the red light. She lied at the scene, did all kind of crazy stuff. And it led to the death of my child. So I literally experienced life and death in my body at the same time over the period of 3 months. And it was very, very challenging. And I like to share that even though play tends to focus on the joyful, kind of animated, we're going to have fun. A lot of people don't realize, and here comes the tears, a lot of people don't realize that play also can be seriously therapeutic. You can work through some very, very challenging circumstances, even through the use of play. And so what I mean by that, I actually put together a group partially to help me deal with my grief for parents who had also lost children through perinatal loss or infant loss or child loss. And so we met monthly and we did playful activities. Now these activities, sometimes we would, like one group, we did yoga. Another time we did painting. Another time, we did a sand tray. One of the playful things, and this may not sound too playful, that I figured out that really helped me as well was listening to classical music. I grew up playing the piano and playing classical music. And so something triggered that kind of stress relief for me inside. And so I was really able to use all of these aspects of play in trying to help my right brain process all the things that my left brain was too overstimulated to process using play. And so I share that example to say that P for play literally can be used in an animated, fun way, but it can also be used when there are trying times to help your right brain really release all of those pent up, stored emotions that are hard to articulate through your left brain. So that's the P. Any thoughts from you, Tammy? I know that was kind of a lot.
It was a lot, but I'm taking it all in, and I so appreciate your vulnerability. And you raised such an important point of the seriousness of play. And this idea, even as play therapists, people think, oh, we're just playing, we're not doing anything therapeutic. And that in general, there are all types of play. And when kids and even adults go deeper into their trauma, it's not often fun, and it's how are they really expressing themselves in imagination in different playful aspects. But that play, is it Mr. Rogers, is I forget his quote of it being serious business. I always use the quote and I can't think of it offhand, but just that we have to really look at that, the seriousness, and we all know as play therapists, the therapeutic value of play, and how you took knowing that how therapeutic play is to your world and to your profession, and doing as a clinician, being able to do it. And then you took it to also heal yourself, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Like for how we're all doing this, like how can us as play therapists and everybody listening to this interview of being able to recognize like this works. It's not just for kids, and we need to do it too to heal our own traumas. So I thought that was beautiful, Yolanda.
Yes, I am huge on clinician care to enhance effective client care. And so it's very important for me, since I stress that so much with my clinicians and my supervisees, to be able to model that. That's like a priority for me. And it just happens to come out a lot of times, sometimes in play, whether serious or whether playful, and enjoy it. So the second one is L, which is laugh. I personally love to laugh. I love laughing. And of course, it's a great stress reliever and booster of endorphins. And so it's interesting too, because when we think about the concept of grief and laughter, typically they don't equate. You know, they're most of the time on either extremes. And so when you think about the combination, a lot of times initially it can be a little off-putting, and I'll share a story with you, what I mean by that. But so when I was in my first year of graduate school, my father died. And so this was like my first major death. And so I didn't really understand what grief would look like. It was really foreign to me. I was living at my mom's house at the time, kind of broke graduate student. And so I was in her bed. I was in my bedroom in her house, and some people had came over, and they were just kind of just comforting the family. They were downstairs, and they were laughing and joking, and here I am, had barely eaten. I'm sad, I'm crying, and I'm like, why are they laughing? And I really wanted to just put them out of my mom's house, but it wasn't my mom's house, so I couldn't put them out. So my mom came up and she was like, look, come downstairs. Cause at this time I had been isolated in the house for like a week. She's like, come downstairs. You have some guests in the house. And I'm just like, I don't want to be around people, let alone laugh. I think it's so rude and disrespectful. They're laughing and it's so sad. And so eventually, out of respect for my mom, I went downstairs. And we're in this group. I'm sitting on the couch for like the first 30 minutes. I have kind of like the stone face, like, oof, I just want them to leave. And then one of the ladies cracks a joke that I could not help but laugh at. Like, I'm just bawling laughing. And then I realized how so much energy for a whole week had been given to my sadness, which was appropriate. And then to just experience a little bit of life again through laughter, that was so powerful. And it was an appropriate joke. Now, I'm not the one to say, throw in jokes that are inappropriate or just to make somebody laugh. I'm not that type to say that you should laugh just to lighten the mood, because that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is using appropriate humor can really assist with getting out of that zone of depression. Depression is kind of like that microscope where you look through your eyes and you only see what's at the end of that scope. You can't see beyond that. And so laughter sometimes can help you really elevate and look beyond what's out of that single scope to see the rest of life. And I think that in itself can be very, very powerful. And so with that, even with the loss of my child through perinatal loss, I recognized I needed to laugh some. So I started watching some of my favorite comedy movies, just to kind of break away from the monotony of thinking about this. Somebody robbed me of my first viable child's life. I had to really get out of that mindset so that I can counterbalance the heaviness of that with something that can lift my mood a little bit. So that's my L. Any thoughts? Because I know that too, all of these pieces, although I presented them in John Burr's video very short because we had to do like 30 minutes, they all have a story behind them.
Right. And I love that. I've been talking a lot about like the nurtured heart approach, and that in all the stands of the nurtured heart approach, like everything's a story. And as play therapists, we're always telling stories for, it all has so much meaning in this acronym that you're talking about, of a different story for each. So I love that. And of course I'm not gonna say I love to laugh, because I love to laugh. So I'm just taking it in, but I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful how you're breaking it down. So we have P, we have play, and we have L for laughter.
Yes. And so my next one is A, and it's attitude of gratitude. And I will say that this was the one that was the most hardest to practice. But the one that saved my life, essentially.
Wow.
And so with the child loss, it was hard to get out of bed some days. And literally I ended up buying a journal, and it was like a really cheap $5 journal on Amazon. And literally had like the same thing on every page. And so the first thing was, when you wake up, label something that you're grateful for. The last piece when you go to bed, name something you're grateful for. And I want to back up because I want to share there's a difference between being positive and being grateful. To me, positive, a lot of times when people say that, it takes an unrealistic value. And I know those kind of oxymorons now I think about it, but it's be positive. You have all this stuff, ignore all of the challenging things going on in your life. So I don't really like the word positive at all. I do like the word affirmative though. And I often sub that with affirmative and gratitude, because what gratitude does is takes on the reality, like you're building the self-awareness of what literally is going on. That's challenging, that's sad, that's angry, that's frustrating, that's anxiety producing. You're taking that and you're recognizing the reality of it, and also trying to balance out that perspective with what you do have to balance out your being, essentially. So in thinking about the perinatal loss, when I think about all the things I lost with it, it was so many losses that came with that, including like I had a friend who told me she couldn't care about me. Like it was the craziest thing. And so it came with a lot of different losses, people saying things that were not helpful at all, but it was out of their own anxiety. There was a lot of losses on top of the compounded losses essentially. And so the gratitude piece, what I started to find, it was very hard at first to identify what I was grateful for during that time. Literally, my gratitude journal started off with, I moved my legs out of bed and put my feet on the ground. And that was something I was truly grateful for, because I could have chosen to keep my butt in the bed. Okay. Other things grateful that professional life was flourishing. Personal life felt like I was in a box, buried under garbage, grateful that I had friends who did check on me. So starting to shift my perspective from those who did some really bad things to those who were caring and there for me. Even now, thinking about gratitude amongst the pandemic, being grateful that we wake up and we're breathing. Because some people right now literally are struggling to breathe. And for those who are struggling to breathe, being thankful that their body is still trying to fight to help them breathe. So no matter which angle you come from, there's a way to shift your mindset so that it can take on the realities of what's happening right now, while at the same time balancing out so that your body can be your strength.
It's beautiful. I love that.
So this is the most I've ever cried probably on TV or whatever this
I so appreciate you being authentic and you sharing, because it's about being real, right? And that's that piece of it, how you talk about from positive to gratitude. Like when positive just seems like such a disconnect, almost like it almost like sits alone in a way of just like a light switch. Then I don't know, I think of gratitude as like all encompassing, like this piece of it. And even that part of the gratitude journal of you just, getting your feet out of bed, that how we have to just like be grateful and take baby steps. I don't know why I've been talking about Nurtured Heart so much, but Nurtured Heart uses the frame of taking molecules to miracles. Instead of a mountain out of a molehill, how do we take these little molecules, like moving your toes and turning it into a miracle? Because those are those little moments that we just have to like stop and embrace, these little moments that we are grateful for.
Yes. And when I say it really lifted over time, it wasn't quick, but over time, it really lifted the heaviness there, because I literally had a broken heart. It was like the limb was missing. And so over time, it helped to balance out, not to deny, but to balance out the realities. Yeah. All right. So we have the P, L, and A. And now we get to the Y, which essentially is, for me, stands for you, meaning me, Yolanda, you, Tammy, you, everybody who's watching. It, for me, is composed of two components. The first one is recognizing your own value, being able to be who you are innately and to appreciate who you are. And so a piece of recognizing your own value in the midst of craziness, you know, and all of that can be very challenging. You know what? We do the best that we can, especially when we're in a time that we haven't experienced before. You know, the last major one was 1918, you know, with the whole swine flu. And so unless you're, you know, 90, 100 years old, you may not have experienced this before.
Right.
And so being able to recognize your value, like thinking about all the parents who may be struggling right now, trying to, you know, teach their kids, be a stay-at-home mom, work from home, recognizing that you're valuable and being able to do what you can do. Same with the play therapist. You know, I've seen some posts where some play therapists, they're trying to provide therapy to kids while they're struggling with their own kids, you know? And so just recognizing in this moment, you know what, I'm valuable and I can do the best that I can do. And then the second piece of that is caring about your own needs, because especially as therapists, like counselors in general, a lot of us go into the profession with the attitude to really care about other people. And in the process, some counselors end up neglecting themselves. And that goes back to my point of clinician wellness equals client wellness. There is no skips there. If the clinician isn't well, the client most likely isn't getting all that they can be getting on an effective level. And so for like, when I experience my losses, I now have a list. Whenever I lose something, like literally I give myself permission to, and you can fill in a blank, but I gave myself permission to be sad. Literally, if I need to schedule in time to be sad, like even right now, I might need to take a 30-minute schedule in my day at some point to just feel sadness. That is what helps me become self-aware. That is what helps my body recognize I value that something is alerting me that is not where I would like it to be, and I need to pay attention to it. I need to care about my needs when asking for help. I need to ask for help sometimes. I need to get support when needed. I need to care about my needs. All of these things are little things that really are big things that help us value ourselves. And so paying attention to what we need while we're also paying attention to the needs of others.
Yolanda, I think it's wonderful, and I think it's great. I'm going to move us back in our double screen now. Of that, you know, this is such a great acronym to just be knowing for ourselves in terms of a reset, for us to be able, for those who supervise, to really do it with their supervisees, as well as really teaching this to the parents that we work with, almost as if it is this mantra in terms of these different pieces of it that are you know, really important points. And I think that it can just be so helpful to so many people. So yeah, Yolanda, I so appreciate you being vulnerable, you telling us your story. And so I think that many of us can relate to your story in all different ways, right? Of all different losses and all different ways that we can create this acronym that you have, a play, which is just like, when I hear the word play, right? I sometimes do in my workshops, what's the first word that comes to your mind when you think of play? So it's like hard for you to feel negative when you think of play, at least me, I think of just healing and this component. And I almost feel the whole play acronym almost just feels like this big hug. And this beautiful way to support. So I picture
virtual hug in the middle of the pandemic.
It's a virtual hug. You know, I picture me in my brain. I picture you literally having the P.L.A.Y acronym as if it's a little commercial, and the Y is the hug around the arms of the Y is the hug around you. So Yolanda, I'm giving you a virtual Y hug for just being
Thank you.
here
I appreciate
today.
it. And here's yours back.
I love your Y hug and being vulnerable and sharing it with us. So thank you so much. And I want you to take care of yourself and be well.